Welcome to Kent Hans, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. You can find us online at hanspodcast.com. Chancellor, why don't you get us started with your saying of the day?
One of my mother's favorite sayings was the two things that'll hurt the heart the most is running upstairs and running down people. And I think that's appropriate after a long election where everybody was running everybody down. So maybe we can get back to something a little more positive.
I got a message this week, Chancellor. Someone asked if you would reshare the story, and you're going to have to refresh my memory on this one, but it was about Babe Schwartz and when Babe wanted to get a gun. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it does. It's a great story. Babe Schwartz was a state senator from Galveston. Good guy. We seldom voted the same way. We were real good friends. And he tells a story that he told about when he was 26, 27. He was working in the DA's office in Galveston. And he got a letter one day, and the letter said, "Dear Mr. Schwartz, I'm going to kill you." You know, it was kind of short and to the point and understandable. And so he went running down to the sheriff's office there in Galveston, and he said, "Sheriff, I got to get a gun. You got to help me get a gun." And the sheriff said, "Why?" And he said, "I got this letter." And the sheriff said, "All these people just trying to scare you." And Schwartz said, "Well, they're doing a hell of a good job of it." And so he just kept talking. Finally, the sheriff said, "Okay, go over to this pawn shop," mention the pawn shop, and ask for a .38 revolver, a police revolver, police specials, what they called. And they don't jam. Their revolver, they're dependable. You know, automatically jam on you sometime. And with a .38 revolver, if you want to shoot something, you just point and pull. Point the gun to what you want to shoot and pull the trigger. And so they were talking about, and the sheriff said, "Now, Babe, after you get the gun, take it down to Billy's welding shop there on the east end and get them to weld the gun sight off." And he said, "The gun sight? What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, it looks like a BB on the end of the barrel, and that's how you line up on what you're going to shoot." He said, "Why would I have them file that off?" He said, "That way when they take the gun away from me and stick it up your rear, it won't hurt so bad." And I cleaned that up a little, but that's a great story. And Schwartz always remembered it every time he thought about needing to get a gun. He did not do so. We had a big election last week, and Tuesday was a big day. It was a big change. Trump won big, and that was not expected. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. But he won 312 electoral votes, and Harris, she had 226. So it wasn't a close race. And, in Texas, he wound up with 56% of the vote, and Harris had 42%. So, I mean, he in effect beat her right at 14 points, and that's not a close race. I mean, you're getting landslide on things like that. Mm-hmm. And there were like 10 to 12 counties that she carried. And they were big counties, but she had El Paso and Harris, Fort Bend, Dallas, had Austin, and Hayes County and Bexar County were the main ones in El Paso that I watched and that she did. But so, I mean, she got 12 and he got 242 counties. And the Senate race was expected to be tight, but Cruz ran a good campaign. And Allred ran a competitive campaign, and he spent almost $100 million. And Cruz wasn't far from that. But the final was Cruz 53.1 and Allred 44.5. So you had about 8.5, 9 point difference. And I think what happened, you go back to the last time Cruz had an opponent, and he had Beto. and Beto came within a couple of points. So everybody said, well, he's easy. If we get that close with Beto, we can win it if we go with somebody else. Look, there are certain people have bases, and I go back to a guy that served in the U.S. Senate named Jesse Helms from North Carolina, arch conservative. And he had an opponent, and the opponent got 47% of the vote and didn't campaign. And so they got Governor Hunt to run and spent $25 million, which was record, and he got 48% of the vote. So there, Jesse had a base that was not going anywhere, and then he had, a certain group against him. But you might spend all you wanted to and get 1 point more than someone that spent barely anything. And in races, that's someone may have negatives, but their negatives, are not comparable to their base. And Cruz showed that he had a big base, and I think that helped him for his future, because you spend $100 million on a Senate race, and your candidate is in a situation where he only gets 44% of the vote. You're not going to get in that race every time, because you can take that $100 million and go to New Hampshire and Wyoming and in other places, smaller states, where if you spend in New Mexico $5 million on a race or $10 million, that would be astounding. And in Texas, when the candidates together will spend $150, $200 million, that's just a lot. But Texas has 19 markets, TV markets. And so that's what drives that cost so much, that Texas is a big state and a very populous state. One time I was campaigning, and I was talking about raising money, and I told them that this has been back in a long time ago, 1990 or 86, something like that. And I pointed out that if you buy a 30-second spot on 60 Minutes, on Sunday night in DFW area, it was like $6,000, and it's 10 times that now. And I said, that's the most expensive ad in the state. And the cheapest ad in the state was CBS Morning News in Amarillo, and it's $15. And I said that in my speech, and the guy came up after the speech over, and he said, Congressman, I'll take care of some of those ads in Amarillo. So, gee, thanks, $15 an ad. And both the people watching, enjoyed it. But it is so costly. And if you get on the Cowboys game, which they're playing every Sunday, and you get on their ads, they'll cost you $110,000 to $120,000. But you reach so many people. I think in politics, you don't understand, as a candidate, you get to thinking, I got to get out and get to shaking hands and meeting people. If you stay at your house and make cell calls and raise $100,000, then you can take that money around the state and see millions of people on the 6 and 10 o'clock news. So it's a retail game with your markets in the state of Texas because it's such a big state. And one of the reasons that Cruz did the bus trip was to get free publicity, because if you're doing a bus trip, then the TV stations come out and they record it, and you get some free TV, and you also have a bunch of people, and newspapers come out and take pictures, so it gives you a little free, what we called earned media, that you do something to earn a spot. I had a guy in a little town I went to, and I was running for state senate. And I won't name the town. The guy may still be alive, and I gave him my press package to announce I was running for state senator. And I said, "Do you want to take a, picture or interview me?" And he said, "No." He said, "You buy some ads, and we'll run these stories." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I talked to him, but this is a big news deal. He said, "Well, That's just my policy. They buy some ads, we'll run the story. You don't buy any ads, we're never going to run the story. And I said, what if I shot somebody? He said, we'd run that. He'd run that free. But, it taught me a lot. I went to a radio station in Rawls, Texas one time, and I had a budget already lined out. And I asked the guy about advertising, and he interviewed me over the radio. I said, what about advertising? I want to buy some ads. And he said, we've got a $50 package, we got a $75 package, and we got a $100 package. And he started telling me a little about the packages. I'd set aside $250. I said, what can I have for $250? He said, hell, you can have the station. I almost bought a radio station for $250. I knew he was running on a tight budget.
Yeah, and interesting. Can we go back to the Cruz election? Since Beto ran a tough race against him, that was much tougher than this one. Are you saying that the leadership of the party kind of saw blood in the water in Texas?
Oh,
and said, hey, let's dump a whole bunch of money.
I think they did. Schumer wanted to put a bunch of men. His number one target was Cruz. And he wanted to put a bunch of money in here. He thought, one, he might beat him, but two, he didn't want Cruz out all over the country campaigning in other spots. And Cruz has a tendency to help other candidates. And so Cruz would have been spending time in Montana and Ohio and in places like that. And so they got him a good opponent. Allred had been a member of Congress and was a good congressman, played football and in the NFL and played at Baylor. And so he had a lot of credentials, and that he had been a member of the House. But he never could shake the transgender issue that a lot of the liberals, Democrats say, well, that's really not an issue because there's not that many of them. Well, look, if it's an issue, if they watch that and that gets their attention, it's an issue. Whether you like it or not, it's an issue. And the boys playing in girls' sports is an issue. It's an issue in Texas. May not be happening in 2 places, 5 places, but it tells you about the philosophical leanings of an individual. And so that's a big deal. And that they made that a big deal. And then he had something about Allred's own words was talking about the racist wall, that the wall to keep people from invading, that was called it a racist wall. Well, most of the people, including me, we don't think of that as a racist wall. It's a wall. And it's keeping people out that are coming illegally. There's still a lot of people get to come in legally every year. And so I think you're going to see Trump, first thing he's going to do is deport everybody that's in prison or has been arrested. That'll be his first line, that he'll be deporting you. If you've been arrested or if you've served time in another jail or prison anywhere in the world, and you've come in illegally, you're going back to wherever you came from, and that'll be their policy. A lot of people say, well, so what's he going to do the first month, round up everybody that's here illegally? Well, he doesn't have the time and the money to do that. But as they work with these district attorneys, and by the way, speaking of district attorney, the district attorney in Los Angeles got beat by a Republican. And the district attorney out there has been very progressive, and he doesn't prosecute shoplifting up to $1,000. If you're shoplifting, take your ad machine with you and add it up as you go along in L.A., and you get to $1,000 before they'll file anything. And the new guy says he's going to follow the law and that he's not going to look the other way. And so it was a big deal in California. There were several votes went against what the most liberal leadership in the country has had all the time. And the Republican winning the DA's race in Los Angeles is a big deal. And people are tired of letting criminals go. And so it was thing that changed the election.
Did this seem like a common sense election from people? Like, it's common sense to not let 15, 20 million people into this country. It's common sense to arrest people that steal things. People just got tired of a progressive agenda and got out and voted against these things. Well, it just seems like common sense.
I think there's no question about it that they were thinking that, look, if let's say somebody's numbers were 10 million came in and somebody said 15 million, it doesn't matter. They just came in without any documentation or anything, and they would catch and release, and everybody coming in knew that. And that's the reason the numbers went so high after the Biden administration let it be known that was their point. Now, will those same people, if they're here in 4 years or 8 years or 10 years, will they be trying to vote? I think the Democrats felt like those are potential voters and go ahead and let them in. And the Republicans didn't. And that became an issue. And I think that was an issue with everyone throughout the country. Law and order, people want safe communities. And they're not for defunding the police. I was watching some of the talk shows this weekend, and there was a guy that was a liberal Democrat on TV, and they were asking him what they should do, because I've seen a lot of people on TV, and they said, well, it was a racist campaign, and they were crying and whining, it wasn't fair, and everything like that. And this guy said, we cannot, as Democrats, he was talking about himself, and he's a traditional liberal Democrat, we cannot expect to win races when we come out for things like defund the police, open borders. He said it's just not going to work. People, they don't want it, and they're going to let you know. And I think that's correct. I would have to give credit to Trump for being the most dedicated person I've ever seen in politics of what he was after, and that he didn't fluctuate. You know, he gets indicted 4 times, questionable deals, gets indicted 4 times, gets found guilty, has a sentencing date, but that's going to be set aside, gets shot, you know, has another attempt that was being set up, and still stays focused on winning a presidential race. And I was impressed that if nothing else, whether you like him or dislike him, his stamina is outstanding for his age and everything. And he works hard and was able to pull everything off. I also had a few other stats I wanted to mention. In the race for U.S. Senate, we picked up West Virginia. The Republicans picked up West Virginia. And the Democrats really didn't have a candidate. Governor Justice won that. And then Montana was the second one they thought they could win. And they won Montana by a vote of, she had 52.8 and Tester had 45. And so, he beats him by over 7.5 points. That was not a close race. That was a blowout. And in Ohio, Marino got 50.2 and Sherrod Brown was 46.4. So he beats him almost 4 points, which is a sound defeat. Marino, I helped. I did 2 fundraisers for him. And so the numbers looked good, and I was watching it. So I called his cell number to leave him a voicemail, how proud I was of him. And it started ringing. He goes, "Hey, Congressman, how are you?" And I said, "Bernie, what are you doing answering your phone?" He said, "I got a second here before they announce me as a winner." And I've never had that happen before, that I'll call somebody knowing that they're not going to answer. You leave them a voicemail. Tell them, "You don't need to call me, but I'm proud, that you won," everything like that. He just answered the phone, threw me off. I almost hung up. Didn't know what to say. I didn't expect him to answer the phone. But Marino is an impressive candidate. he is somebody that you're going to be impressed with. Ohio will have another Senate race coming up. The Democrats, in my opinion, will try to get Sherwood Brown to run, since he spent all that money on getting up to the number of votes he's got. But some of the people are going to point out he only got 46.4 and spent tens of millions of dollars. In Pennsylvania, McCormick leads by over 30,000 votes, but Bob Casey has not conceded yet. But with all that happening, right now it looks like you got 53 Republicans and 46 Democrats in the Senate. And the one state that has not been declared is Arizona. And that one's still touch and go. But Lake, the lady that was running as a Republican, I think she's down about 50,000, and I think it's going to be awfully hard for her to come back. So the makeup is probably going to be, 53-47. Now, the makeup in the House is still to be decided, and the House is always late being decided. You've got 435 people running for Congress. And some of them, are going to be extremely close races, where there, maybe less than 100 votes or less than 10 votes separate them. So it takes longer to get them certified and everything. And right now, it looks like to me the Democrats are going to come close, but they're not going to pull it off. I think the Republicans are going to control the U.S. House of Representatives by a big margin of 3. It's hard to govern if you've only got a margin of 3. And so Speaker Johnson, will not have it easy. But if he could get to 10, but the problem he faces that in 2 years, no matter who's been president, they always lose House members. And so they've got that to do. The one of the reasons this is so important is that if the Democrats did get control, they'd have committee chairmen, and those committee chairmen would be having hearings on Trump and his issues every day, and impeachment and stuff like that. But I think it's Republicans are going to control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Now the talk starts about who will be the chief people for Trump and his cabinet and things like that. And Susie Wold is the new chief of staff. She ran his campaign. I've been around her and know her, and she's very intelligent, and she's run some county commissioners' campaigns on up. And I like somebody that's run a county commissioner's campaign. They understand the brethren of the voter, that you got to be out there, knocking on doors and things like that for it to be effective.
She Chancellor, she's a tough cookie, isn't she?
Yes, and she's very firm, and she could tell. There are a lot of people try to tell Trump something, and they get into a fight with him. And I'm not saying that right or wrong. It's just that he doesn't. He has to really respect somebody before he listens to him. And she understood him, and she had a feel of what was good for him and what wasn't, and that she had explained to him why she thought he should do certain things. And that Trump's Trump. He's a guy one time told me he had a theory about politics called the collie dog theory. And the collie dog theory was that everybody likes a collie dog, and that with every collie dog, they're going to have a few, negative things about their personality, but they'll have more positive. So you got to stay with them when they have some negative statements, because they're going to have some positive things that will set well with the voter. One other thing I was going to mention is that you look at what happened in South Texas, and Trump carried a lot of counties down there that have never gone for a Republican, and he had a big appeal to the Hispanic voter, especially in Texas and South Texas. And Trump's tried to realign the Republican Party to make it a party of the working people, and that I think he's done a pretty good job in that regard.
Does this election, the results of this election, signify that the progressive movement is dead because you can't win elections? If you can't win elections being progressive, why do it? Do you think it's dead?
I don't think it's dead, but I think it's wounded. The progressives are not going to give up. Just mark that down. They're hardcore true believers. They know what's best for you and me and everybody else. And we need to just sit down, shut up, and take it. Their views are out of touch with the American mainstream. And when you get to talking about defund the police, or you get to talking about, transgender, that guys can play women's sports, and you've just lost a certain number of people, and it puts you in a real bind. And I think they're wounded, but they'll be back. Now, what will be their issues in 2026? I don't know, but they'll have some issues, and that's never the first term of your presidential campaign. After one term, one session, the other side's going to have an easier chance at picking up seats. They just are. But the way the Senate votes will come up and what will be available next time will not allow the Democrats, in my opinion, to take over. I think the Republicans have the Senate for another, 4 to 6 years.
Chancellor, any insight on who might be the Senate Majority Leader?
No, that's a race that John Thune from South Dakota and John Cornyn from Texas. It's narrowed down to them. John Brasso from Wyoming was in the race, then dropped out, and will probably be the whip. A lot of people are asking, is Rick Scott going to get in the race? If Rick Scott gets in the race, then that changes a lot of things, because he's not going to get in the race unless Trump comes out for him. And so it could, I don't know what Trump's going to do. He's starting this term. When he went to the White House the first time, he had Mitch McConnell in the Senate, who was not a big supporter of his, and he had Ryan as Speaker, who was not a big supporter of his. And so now he's starting off with Mike Johnson from Louisiana, who's the Speaker and has been an ally and a spokesman for President Trump on many occasions. Mike Johnson's done a very good job, and when it's hard to be Speaker when you got your margin was 8, and now it's fixing to be 3, and maybe 2, maybe 4. And it's hard to keep all the troops in line. And but if Rick Scott decides to run and the president goes out for him, I think he becomes the guy to beat. Otherwise, it's kind of a toss-up. Looks like Cornyn's got the biggest advantage, which if you're just talking about governmental entities and what would help the state of Texas, it would be a big plus to have a majority leader from your state. But we won't know about this till they'll hold the election. If somebody said, well, they're trying to sneak this election, they always hold it within a week or two after the presidential election. And it's a secret ballot. And the reason that's always been that way is that it allows the person to get along with everybody else a lot better once they win, rather than they know how everybody voted on it. But it's always been secret ballot.
We're going to wrap up and remind everybody what the saying of the day is, which comes from your mother.
Saying of the day, and remember this, my mother always said, 2 things will hurt the heart the most is running upstairs and running down people. And I thought of that because of the election's behind us, and let's don't be running down people, and walk upstairs, don't run.